Good morning. We're learning as is for Shlema Filan Chaya Basarach and as a Aliyah for the Neshama of Meir ben Elazar. We're on Daf Ayin Amid Beis. We're in the middle of the sugya. We had seen in the Mishnah on the top of the Amid that we said a behema has a stillborn over inside of it. If the raya, if the shepherd touches the dead fetus inside of the animal, the dead uber, the Tanna Kama says whether it's a behema tmeya or a tahira, it's tar. Basically, says it depends. A behema tahira is tar. A behema tmeya is going to become tame because he touched the nevel. So we had seen the explanation of the Tanna Kama is he says it's a kal v'chaimer. If that uber inside of a behema tahira becomes kosher without a shechita, because the shechita of the mother is metaret from being not shachat. It also, the status of the mother that it's alive also impacts the uber and makes it that it's tar as well from the din nevela. Then we ask, well, how do you, that only applies for behemoth tahira. Behemoth tmeya, there's no din that the uber is kosher to eat. So he said it's a hekesh. The pasuk is makish behemoth tmeya to behemoth tahira. And the Rabbi Yosef Glili, we asked, what was his reason for disagreeing with the Tanna Kama? So he said, because b'chol hoyle chal kappa b'chol achaya elechas mahal kapay mechaya temesilach. And we came to the conclusion that it says kol hoyle chal kappa is talking about a behema tmeya, and it says b'chol hachaya, we darshan that to mean inside of a chaya ha'elechas al arba, which means that it has arba instead of 4 hooves. It has 4 hooves instead of 8 hooves, which is also a behemoth tmeya. So it's telling you a behemoth tmeya inside of a uber tmeya inside of a uber of a behemoth tmeya, that is not going to have, the kavachaimer is not going to apply to make it that it's kosher to eat, or not that it's kosher to eat, that it's not metama as nevela, and it will be tamei als nevela. So we asked a sequence of questions, and now we're up to the final question on this. And this is on the last word of the last narrow line. Mask Rav Achduboy bar Ami, Chazir b'mei chazirta. What if you have a chazir, a davar acher, a pig that's a fetus inside of its mother? Loy tama. It shouldn't be tame because a chazir famously does have split hooves, right? It sticks out its split hooves. So it's shmeina b'teich shmeina. The mahalche shmeina b'mahalche shmeinu. That pasuk would not apply to it. It's neither the uber nor the mother have 4 hooves altogether. They have 8. So that pasuk should not be metamet. Yet we know certainly there's no nafkamina. Rabbi Yosef Glili said all behemoth tmeis, the uber inside of it is going to be metamet, but a chazir should not. So we're back to the question: how does Rabbi Yosef Glili know not to learn from the hekesh to tell you that an uber tmeya inside of a behemoth tmeya is going to be metamet? Elam Rav Nachman Yitzchak of Nachman Yitzchak learns from an alternative pasuk, not from this pasuk of b'chol chal kappa b'chol achaya ha'elechas. He learns that mehacha nefesh kisiga b'chol tamei oy benivlas chaya tmeya oy benivlas behema tmeya oy benivlas sheretz tamei. This is the pasuk that tells you the iser or the tuma of a nevela, and it says either benivlas chaya tmeya or benivlas behema tmeya. Fact Gemara b'chi nivlas behema tmeya metama ubetahira loy metama. What is the pasuk telling you that behema tmeya and a chaya tmeya are metama? But it doesn't say anything about a nevela of a behemoth tahira. That certainly we have a pasuk for that as well. Um, the Torah tells you directly that an nevela of a behemoth tahira is also metama. Ella eza ze uber shebet shebetmeya tame ubetahira tar. So we learn from this pasuk that it's designating a tuma by a tmeya. It's coming to tell you the uber in the tmeya. It's not restricting it that the nevela itself is metama, but it's talking about the uber in the behemoth tmeya. So we're telling you in a behemoth tmeya or a chayat tmeya, whatever the case may be, it's going to be tame, that uber, ubetayra tar. That's Rabbi Yisrael Glili's limud to tell you that to be mechalik between the behemoth, the uber, and the behemoth tmeya, as opposed to an uber and a behemoth tar. So now what do we do with that original pasuk that we had so much fun with, which says "V'chol hoylech al kappa," whatever goes on its paws, b'chol hachaya, inside of a chaya haleches, that we said it's tamei. What are you going to do with that pasuk? It's all coming for Rebbe that we're going to see on Amid Aleph Zayin on the next blot, that where he makes a different drasha from that pasuk. Tanya, Amrav Yenis said, Namti loy leben Azai. I asked for Ben Azai the following question: Lamadnu nevelis behema Torah shemetama. An avela. We learned that an avela behema, that's an avela of a behema Torah is metama. But an avela is behema tmeya shemetama, right? That was the original pasuk. V'chiyamas mina behema talks about a behema Torah. An avela is behema tmeya shemetama, and I learned that a behema tmeya is metama. Ve'er is chaya tmeya shemetama. And we have from the second pasuk nefesh kisig b'chol tamei b'nivlis chaya tmeya b'nivlis behema tmeya. So we learn about a chaya or a behemoth tmeya that it's metam. But nevelis chaya tahira loy lamadnu. We have a behemoth tahira, we have a behemoth and a chaya tmeya, but we don't talk about a chaya tahira. The Torah never says that its nevela is metama. Minayin. So where do I learn it from? Namely, so Ben Azai told me, Kol halil chal kappa b'chol chaya lechas. I learned it from that pasuk. The pasuk said this pasuk of Nachum by Yitzchak. It says anything that goes on its paws, any chaya that goes al abba tmeim heim lochem kol negim mivlasam yitmar arv. It talks about b'chol chaya, any chaya. It's going to be even a chaya tahira. Namti loy, so I told him, v'chinema v'chol chaya, does it say on any chaya? V'alo ela b'chol chaya. It says anything inside of a chaya. It's talking about a uber. It's coming to tell you the din, like Rav Nachum Yitzchak has said, of an uber. If we meant to talk about all chayas, it should have said v'chol chaya, not b'chol chaya. Namli umay yishmol lo'im b'davar hazeh. So Ben Azai said back to me, okay, so you got me. I don't have a source for a chaya tahira, because that pasuk is used for something else. So what did Rabbi Shmuel say on this topic? It's a little funny. I'm not sure exactly what was going on in this conversation. Rabbi Yonason obviously had a pshat from Rabbi Shmuel, and then he went and asked Ben Azai, and he tripped up Ben Azai in his pshat, and now Ben Azai is asking him, what did you hear? Why was Rabbi Yonason asking the question in the first place if he had a pshat from Rabbi Shmuel? So I answered him back, Namti loy. So Rabbi Yonason said, this is what Rabbi Shmuel said. V'chiyamas min ha-behema, right? That's the original pasuk of that tells you a behema tahira, its nevela is tamei. V'chiyamas min ha-behema zu behema tmeya asher hi lachem la'achla zu behema tahira. That's telling you behema tahira as well. Min ha-behema tells you behema tmeya. Asher yilachem lacha zu behema tahira, lamanu chaya b'chlal behema, behema b'chlal chaya. And we've learned that within, when we say a behema, it also includes chaya, and we say chaya, it also includes behema. So we said, therefore, we can learn, we'll be able to apply, since we know the rule is that a chaya includes behema, and a behema includes a chaya, we'll be able to tell you, we'll be able to apply chaya tahira b'chlal behema tahira. When the Torah talks, when we talk about a behema tahira, that will also include a chaya tahira. Chaya tmeya b'chlal behema tmeya. And just like we said, a chaya is included in behema by a tahira, it's also be the case by a chaya Tameya, it's going to be included in a chaya tameya, and behema tameya, and also will be reversed. That a behema is included when the Torah mentions a chaya, so it includes a behema tameya b'chlal chaya tameya, and behema tahira b'chlal chaya tahira. We're going to have applications for all four things. That both a chaya behema, a chaya tahira or tameya is included in a behema tahira or tameya, and behema tahira or tameya is included in a chaya tahira or tameya. Ubelashon hazeh amali Chaval ben Azai shalishimis is Rabbi Yishmael. When Rabbi Yonason told this explanation of how we know, where do we know the nevela of a chaya tahira is also netama, and he says it's because in general a chaya is included in a behema, and we said that a behema its nevela is tmeya. He said, it's a shame. Ben Azai said about himself, it's a shame that I never learned by Rabbi Yishmael. He agreed to this limud. Now we're going to go through these four applications where we say that a chaya is included in a behema, and a behema is included in a chaya. Chaya b'chlal behema minalon. Where do we see that a chaya is included when we use the word behema? T'chsiv zoysa behema shetechelu shor sel kvasim ayel v'tzvi v'yachma. When we say the Torah says this is what you could eat, it says from the behemoths, it says zoysa behema, and includes in it the ayel and tzvi and the yachma. Ayel and tzvi and yachma. Ayel and tzvi are different types of antelope and deer. They're wild animals. They're chayas, and they're included in what the Torah said. Zoysa behema shetechelu. Okay, it's not chaya b'chlal behema. So you see that the chaya is included when the Torah discusses a behema. Behema b'chlal chaya. Where do we see a behema is included in a chaya? Minalan. T'chsiv zoysa chaya asher techelu. B'chol ha-behema shel haaretz kol mafreses parsa. Okay, it's not behema b'chlal chaya. When the Torah lists the simonim, it says the simonic kashrus in a animal. It says zoysa chaya. It talks about a chaya, and it discusses mikol ha-behema. So you see, behema is included in the chaya. So that's where you see the general rule. I really misspoke. This is so far all we saw was the general rule that the word chaya includes behema and behema includes chaya. Now we're going to address the specific four iterations, the four different permutations of chaya b'chlal behema, both by tmei and tahira, and behema b'chlal chaya, both by tmei and tahira. So chaya tahira b'chlal behema tahira, the chaya tahira is included in the behema tahira l'simonim, right? We saw that the Torah says b'chol behema asher la'aretz kol mafreses parsa. It says v'sheisha shesa Malay Gera, it says that about behema, and it includes the chaya as well. The chaya also will be kosher if it has the simone kashrus. Chaya tmeya b'chlal behema tmeya. That was legabe that we said that a chaya tahira is included in a chaya in a behema tahira. Where do we see a chaya tmeya is included in a behemoth tmeya. Laharba. So the Torah says you're not allowed to. One is not allowed to crossbreed. You can't breed together different species. And the Torah, when it says this isser, it talks about a behema and includes both a behema tmeya and a behema and a chaya tmeya. And it's saying whether we it says I'm sorry, it says a behema, and it talks about and it means both a behema tmeya or a behema tyra. It's the same isser in either one, and it's going to include it's going to even though it just said behema, it includes the chaya as well, both a tahira and a tmeya. So you see,
What's an example of behemoth tmeya?
what did you say? I'm sorry. What's an example of behema tmeya?
Yeah. What is a behemoth tmeya?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about it. I don't know. Maybe somewhere the Mongols they 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 used to eat their horses, right? Maybe a horse is a behema. Is a horse a chay or a behema?
That has all the indications of a chaya. I mean, it's a wild animal.
It's
I
not
mean, in the sense that
people domesticate horses. Maybe a horse is a behema. I know that I just think that the Mongols used to eat them. I don't know if that's necessary for it to be a behema. It could be
I
just
mean,
that
so that means that
domesticated.
a dog is also a behemoth, which is kind of a stretch.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, maybe a dog is also a behemoth. Um, yeah. Uh, I mean, it's a little hard to determine this because of this Gemara that we're seeing right now that Chayas and Behemoths all have the same rules, except for as far as Chalev, right? The Chalev of a Chaya is mutter and a Behemoth is aser. But if there is a behemoth tmei, it's not going to be relevant as far as whether it's a chaya behemoth, because the chaylev is going to be aser in either case. I guess it would be relevant if there'll be a second isser on the chaylev of a dog, if one ate it, or a horse. But it could be those things are behemoths. It's not like it doesn't really make a difference, right? We're saying now
Right.
from this Gemara, we're seeing that every chay is called a behemoth for most purposes. Except for the legabi the chaylev, I don't know what the or legabi kisi adam, but but again, it's not. All those things are not relevant on something that's not kosher. Those are all differences between a behemoth tahira and a chaya tahira. The difference between a chaya, whether it's oh, I'm sorry, something that's not kosher, a tameya, whether it's a chaya or a behemoth, is really not that important. So that's why we don't have a that's why I don't have a quick answer to what you're saying about what is a behemoth tmeya because it doesn't really make a difference. Um, so we're saying legabi, it's going to be you're going to have that a chaya tmeya is included in a behemoth tmeya because the Torah asers harba by a behemoth tmeya and will be included also uh, a chaya as well. Behemoth tmeya, bechlal chaya tmeya, whatever this behemoth tmeya is included in a chaya tmeya. Look at the Rebbe. That is necessary for Rebbe's drasha, the Tanya, which we had referenced before. That we said this pasuk of on Amud Aleph, kol halach al kappa b'chol chaya lechas al arba tmei meim lechem. We said you'll need it for Rebbe. The Tanya Rebbe, I'm Ekra ani chaya behema. I'm going to call. Uh, I will call he's talking about legabi the din of a carbon oil of a yored that you have to bring. The Torah says you have to bring a carbon oil of a yored if he is nageya in a nevela of a chaya tmeya or behema tmeya, and I call both of them a chaya behema, lama nemra. So why does the Torah have to say? Why does the Torah have to say a behema tmeya? Let it just say a chaya tmeya. Nemra kan behema tmeya, but nemra la behema tmeya. So the reason why we have to mention the behema tmeya is because we want to know what when the Torah says is a carbon oil of a yared for tumas nevela of a chay or a behema, it wants to tell you under what circumstances a person brings a carbon oil of a yared when he's tamei tumas nevela. It's when he eats kachim while he's tamei with that nevela. Mahalan tumas kodesh, just like by it says by behema tmeya tumas kodesh, avkan tumas kodesh. So too over here when we're talking about the isser of eating of touching an avela and then eating the carbon, eating the kachim, it's coming to tell you that you're going to be mechayiv the carbon oil of yared for that isser. So, but this is all dependent on the fact that the Torah did not have to say behema tahira in the first place because it's included in the chayat meil. So you see that's where you see an application that a behema tmeya is included in a chaya tmeya. And finally, behema tahira, b'chlal chaya tahira. Where do we see that when the Torah says a chaya tahira, it also includes a behema liyatzira. That's because the Torah says about the person vayitzar that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the person Adam. He created Adam with a lashon vayitzar. And as we're going to see, that will also apply to a chaya and a behema as well. The Tanan, hamapelas min behema chaya va'oif. If a isha, a woman, is mapel, she gives birth, she miscarries, and the vlad, the uber, is in the form of a behema or a chaya or an oif. Bein tamei and bein tahirin. Whether the form of that uber is that of a behemo chayiv oif tamei or toir. Im zachar teshiv lezachar, im nekeva teshiv lenekeva. An isha who miscarries, who has a baby, there are different rules about how long she's tamei. If it's 80 days, I think it's 80 days for a nekeva and 40 days for a zachar. And if we don't know, then she has to sit for both. A zachar starts earlier after 1 week, and the keva starts after 2 weeks. So this woman, if she gave birth to an uber that has the form of a behema chayev oif, and she doesn't know if it's zachar or nekeva, she's going to have to be yeshiv for Tuma. It's going to be starting. I think it's Tuma for 1 week for a Zachar and 2 weeks for a Nekeva, and then she has Yimei Tayar for 40 days or 80 days. So she's going to have to be Machmer on all these things. Divrei Reb Meir. That's the words of Reb Meir. So Reb Meir, where does he get this from? That the Vlad that's in the form of some kind of Behema Chayev Ve'oif is Metama. He says because the Torah uses a lashon of Yetzira on a behema on a chaya tahira. There's the lashon of Rashi says what the lashon is. Behema Torah b'chlal Torah Torah litzir. The Gabi Chaya Ksiv Yitzira v'Yetzer Hashem Elikim min Adam Kol Chayas Asada. The Torah will use a lashon on a Chaya of a Yitzar. Yitzar Hashem Elikim min Adam Kol Chayas Asada, and it uses on a person a lashon of a Yitzar Adam. So therefore, according to Reb Meir, we're able to darshan that when a woman gives birth to a vlad that's in the shape, that will be a yitzira of an adam. It's included as a yitzira of an adam to be matama the isha. V'cham ma'imim kol she'enim mitzuras adam ein a vlad. The Rabbanan disagree with this drasha. They don't. They say that if it doesn't have, if the stillborn, if the miscarriage does not have the form of an adam, even though it has the form of a behema, it's not a vlad to be matama the mother. In fact, so what do you do with this passage? Right? When we say min habehemot, right? We had learned the passage of which told us uh, from the nevelas of a chaya tmeya or a nevela of a behema tmeya, to tell you that they're both the same. What do they do it? They need it for Rebbe, like Rebbe had used it for carbon oil of a yared, to tell you that what did you have to say? Behema tmeya. So we learned it to darshan to tell you that it's talking about when someone eats kachim while they're tamid. Okay. Now we're going deep into, when I say deep, it's a pun, deep into the din of tumah. Zakta Mishnah, Isha shemes vlada b'soich meya. An Isha that her vlad died, her vlad is stillborn, and it's still in her womb. And the midwife stuck her hand inside of the womb and touched this vlad that's mace. Chayat meya tuma shiva. The chaya, the midwife, is tameh for touching a mace, which requires 7 days with the hazah of the beichatas of the paraduma on the 3rd and the 7th day, and then she's going to become tar. But the woman, the mother, doesn't become tameh from the vlad inside of her. We're going to see, because a tumah that is enclosed is not metah. Amara. Kishem shetuma belua eina metama, just like a contained tumah, something that's tameh inside of something is not metama. Kach tahayra belua eina metama. That means it's not metama. We have to be mechalik. We're going to see soon about a tumah, like for example, a mace that's underground is matama. Obviously, as a kayan, I'm very well aware that she can't walk where there's a grave, so that tumah does go out. We're talking about being matama with negia, with the regular tumah, not of a tumas mace, of tumas oil, but the regular tumah of touching. And so we're saying that a tumah that's enclosed in something else is not matama. So Amar Rabba, kashem shetuma belua. So enclosed tumah is not matama by touching or carrying it. Kach tahayra belua eina mitama. So too, if you have something that's tar, that's enclosed, it will not become tameh from a tumah that's outside of it to be mitamet. It's not going to become tameh from something else. So the example, as we're going to see in the Gemara, is even though nevela, if someone touches nevela, it's metamehim. If he swallows nevela without touching it somehow, and it goes into his stomach, that's an enclosed tumah that is not metama something else. Yeah. So now and then we're saying something else that is tar is not, that was inside of something else, it's not going to, um, for example, let's say he has a kli that he swallowed, and he goes into a house that the house is tamei, the kli inside of him will not become tamei. Sagt die Gemara, Minolan. Where does this come from? The chsiv. Va'oichel benivlos minivlos michabes begadav. Someone who eats from nevela, he washes his begadim, and then he's going to become tar. Right? It's a tumas. It's not a tumas mace. It's a tumas nevela, and that tuma will depart at the end of the day. Are we not talking where he ate a steak from a nevela, and he ate it at 6 o'clock, and then it became shkia at 7 o'clock, and we say if he's taival and he waits for nightfall, he's going to become tar. Become rachmana tar, and nevertheless the Torah says he remains tar after shkia, but he still has that nevela inside of his stomach. It's not digested in an hour. So it seems to indicate, from the fact that the Torah tells you that he becomes tar at nightfall, Vaistais, that a tuma balua is not matama. It was only matama him when he ate it beforehand, when he touched it. But from the fact that it's inside of him is not matama. Sagt Gemara, how do you bring a ride from there? V'dil mashani hasam till chazil. Maybe after an hour, that piece of steak is no longer edible for another human being. The Torah says, Rashi says, you can't feed a nevela to a ger that's in. So that tells you that the only nevela that's metama is one that's edible to a ger. But once it has decomposed to the extent that it's no longer edible, so therefore it's not metama. So maybe the reason why it's not metama when it's still inside the stomach of the person who ate the nevela after shkia is not because it's balua, but it's because it's no longer edible to a ger. It's past the point of being a piece of nevela anymore. So whether we're talking about the tuma of being metama person, or the tuma which is more chamer, or the tuma of being metama food, which is less chamer. Ad lekelev, that he says, in order for it to stop being metama, it's not enough that it becomes inedible to a ger; it has to become inedible to a kelev, to a dog. So according to him, even after an hour, it's still edible to a dog. So we would have a raya from the pasuk. The tuma chamura, the tuma of being metama person, it loses its status as nevela when it becomes inedible to a ger. Tuma kala ad lekelev, and it's only for tuma kala to be metama kalim that it loses its status. It retains its status until it becomes inedible to a kelev. So where are we gonna see? So l'chayra, it could be because it's not edible to a ger after being inside the stomach for an hour. So no, mishum d'leichaz legeru. L'chayra, it's because it's not chaz leger, not because it's balua. And for the Gemara, no. Nihidu lechazi b'fanav shlei b'fanav mitzvah chazilei. Gemara says it is not the most appetizing thought. The Gemara says when something's digested in someone's stomach for an hour, the reason why it's no longer edible to another person is just because how are you getting it out? Because the guy's going to throw it up. And then it's sitting there, obviously no person is going to eat it. But it's the only reason it's not edible is because you saw where it came from. But if a chef would dress it up with a nice, béarnaise sauce and some shallots, it would be perfectly edible. It just doesn't look good. So he says it really, even after an hour, it is really inherently edible to a ger. Okay, so there were two parts. We said Ashkan Tuma Balua, we found that a Tuma Balua, we've proved our point that a Tuma Balua is not Matama from when it's enclosed. Tahira Balua Minal. Where do we know the other way around? That something that is tar is not going to be able to become Tameh from when it's inside something else. Kal v'chomer. We learn it from the kal v'chomer. Uma kli cheres hamuk of tzamid pasel she'ena matzel al tuma shebesaychai milatama. Just like an enclosed kli, that if you have an enclosed kli with something tar inside of it, it stops that thing from becoming tameh. But if you have tuma inside of an enclosed kli, it goes out and it makes the entire area that it's in a tumas ayah. So she'ena matzal tuma shebesaychel milatama, the tuma inside of a sealed kli, it comes out. The amamar tuma ritzutza bekas va'ola adla rakia. Like we find that a mace, even though he's enclosed in the ground, that tuma, a tuma ritzutza, a tuma that's enclosed or pushed down, the tuma still goes out. Matzal al tayr shebesaychel milatama. But that summit puzzle, even though the tuma comes out, it stops that the tyra inside of it does not become tameh with a tumasail. Adam shematzel al tumashabelasaycha. Once we've just proved, right, that the tuma balua is not going to be metama the person that it's inside of because it's balua. Ein adin shematzel al tyra shebasaychel milatame. Certainly, it should be matzel the tyra that's inside of him that it doesn't become tameh. It's like no, don't bring a raya from a klicheres. The klicheres has a different heter. It's a different kula that a klicheres is only metama from the inside. It's not metama if something touches the outside of a klicheres. Time about adam shemetama megabe. A person certainly is metama when something touches his outside. Zakt Gemara, atu anami gabe karmina. What are we talking about? Why are you saying that there's a kula by a klicheres that it's not matama megabe? We're not talking about being matama megabe. We're talking about things being matama from the inside. Adarabba, klicheres chomer shechem matama ma'avirei. Klicheres, when it comes to being matama from the inside, klicheres has a special chumrah that it's matama if something is suspended inside of a klicheres, it's matama without touching it. So certainly something that's balua, if you say that the something that's inside of a klicheres, that something that's inside of it is metama. A tuma inside of it is metama things outside, and nevertheless it stops something that's tar inside of it from becoming tameh. So a kal v'chaymer that a person who, when he's like we said, something's belu inside of him, tuma that's inside of belu inside of him is not metama, will also stop something that's tar inside of him from becoming tameh. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll delve further into the dinim of Tumah tomorrow. Shkaya.
Thank you so much.
That's
Have a great day.
fair.